Here's the problem. You just landed in San Francisco on a flight from Frankfurt. The car rental agent only speaks English. You only speak German. How to get directions? Well, you need a magic black box like this one to help provide a translation connection from their language into your language. It's essentially the same problem as trying to get your new Macintosh to talk to your PC compatible. You need some sort of black box to provide that translation connection. Today we take a look at the problem of how to solve the PC to Mac connection on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte magazine, and Bix, the Byte Information Exchange. Additional funding is provided by the Software Publishers Association and by Intel Corporation, Personal Computer Enhancement.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart, Cheifet, and with me this week is Jan Lewis. Jan, here's the essence of the problem we're talking about. You have an IBM or a PC clone over here. You've just bought a Macintosh, and you want to figure out how to get those two machines to work together. Lots of products out there claim to be able to do that. Software solutions, hardware solutions, books that tell you how to do that. How difficult is it to get a Mac and a PC to work together?
Well, it's gotten a lot easier, but first let me explain the three different levels of getting them to work together. The first level is just being able to get the bits of information back and forth from one machine to another. Doing that may not buy you much once you get it back and forth, but at least that's the first level. The second level is the most important level, and it's what we call interoperability. And that means having something that's running on one machine, let's say a file running on one machine, being able to actually be run by an application on the other machine, and being able to get files back and forth in a way that they operate together. And that's the most important level. The third level is being able to, let's say, take your Mac and turn it into a clone. So that it can actually emulate one. Now, the second level, interoperability, is the most important level of all. And what happens is that once you set it up to, let's say, be able to operate across the different machines, it works very easily after that. And that's a big advance from a couple of years ago.
Jan, we'll take a look at several hardware and software solutions to help you get your Macs and PCs working together. We'll also take a look at Claris's new Extend architecture, which lets the Macintosh operate across several software platforms. Now, this stuff actually can work. We're going to begin with a visit to a large company in Palo Alto that has 83 computers, Macs, PCs, you name it, and they're all working together. Here's a report.
Varian is a multinational electronics company with offices around the world. Varian's electron tubes are used extensively in military applications as well as in medical research and communications. At the company's headquarters in Palo Alto, California, IBM compatibles coexist with Macintoshes and Sun workstations connected by a TOPS network. Mixing different kinds of computers is discouraged in some companies, but Varian decided to accommodate the variety.
Well, there was two reasons for that. Number one, we had quite a bit of equipment already invested in two different ballparks. We had quite a few Macs, and then again, we also had quite a few IBMs. And, you know, just for the sake of dumping one type of product out in the backyard wasn't a good idea. The other thing that we looked at is that we did not want to go through the retraining process of getting everybody who had been using Macs for years or IBMs for years to use a specific program.
At Varian's Palo Alto complex, a Macintosh file server running TOPS connects Macs and PCs in one building, while research labs in another building use the TOPS network for electronic mail. Varian's long-range goal is to establish a real-time link to its overseas operations so that field personnel can get the data they need at any time of the day or night. Still to be solved are the communication problems and the lack of a standard method to transfer images between Macs and IBMs.
Text is a very easy mode of transportation. You know, it's pretty well, you know, if you're transmitting ASCII, you've got ASCII. Graphics, however, which is part of our environment in a large form, you're talking about schematics and things like that, porting that from a Mac to an IBM is not an easy task.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Maria Gabriel.
joining us now is Pamela Sun, District Sales Manager with Dana Communications, and next to Pamela, Paul Kerr, Technical Support Manager with Insignia Solutions. Jan?
Paul, give me an idea of why people need the ability to go back and forth between Mac and DOS and back.
A lot of them are in companies or organizations that have been using computers before the Mac came out or before it became...
Using PCs.
They were using PCs. They have a lot of data, and they want to integrate the Mac and keep the data moving forward as they update the computers in their company, and they turn to products like these.
Has the need increased over the past year or two?
I would say explosively.
And it's really the burden on the Mac. The Mac is sort of the new guy in the environment, and we're trying to get it to communicate with the existing base of machines.
Right.
All right, we have two different approaches here, and I want to start with you, Pamela, and DanaFile. Tell us what DanaFile is, and then show us how you would use it.
Right, okay. DanaFile, like you mentioned, is a form of doing translations between the Macintosh and PCs. This is the DanaFile right here. As you can see, it's an external disk drive. However, what's unique about it, it reads and writes IBM DOS into the Mac environment. It's a SCSI device, and we do support the entire Macintosh, or excuse me, the entire PC disk format. And for demonstration purposes, what I'm going to do here is take a standard 360K disk, 5 1/4, pop it in.
Okay, so that's a DOS formatted disk.
This is a DOS format diskette, right? And what you're going to see here is our feature that will actually mount that disk onto the desktop finder level. So as you can see here, it's right here.
All right, so what's on that disk then?
Okay, by double clicking. Again, now that's ported right into the Macintosh, you're working with Mac convention ways.
So right away we know there's something wrong here because there's WordPerfect and Lotus and Symphony and WordStar.
Right, okay.
And these are still DOS files at this point?
These are still DOS files, and they are data files. So you're reading in the data files. And by double clicking here, as you can see, it converts everything into the folders and the icons. And let's go ahead and open up a Lotus 123 data file. What you're going to see here is a feature called extension mapping. And what extension mapping does is it takes that PC file and brings it right into an equivalent Macintosh application. And in this case, we're loading it 123 into Microsoft's Excel.
Okay, so we're not running 123 on the Mac, we're running Excel, but we're playing with that WKS file from Lotus.
That's correct. Right, exactly. And all the formulas have been brought over, so you can go ahead and make your updates, your reports, your
so
charts.
It's bringing not just the data and the labels, but the formulas.
Right, that's correct. And so you make all your changes in your reports like I mentioned. But now when it's time to save, okay, I have the option of saving it right back to the Dana file, which saves on the PC format.
Is that the default
That's the
option?
default, as you can see right here, WKS.
Okay.
Or I can change that and click it on normal, which is an Excel document.
So you could go save it back into your 123 file or save it inside Excel.
Excel.
Is there any difference in the speed of performance when you're going through this translation?
Not really. It's, again, you're working within the Excel application. And so you're working with the speed of the product itself.
All right, now, suppose I don't have your drive. Can I still do something like this if I have the newer version of the Mac with the FDHD drive?
Yes, you can. Let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about Apple's FDHD drive. When they came out with this drive, one of the formats that it's capable of reading is the MS-DOS disk.
Right.
Okay. However, you have to go through their Apple File Exchange routine or application in order for it to recognize that disk.
For the translations?
For the translations, or even just to recognize that disk. We came out with a product called DOS Mounter, which is a system utility program, and it resides in the system folder. And what it allows me to do is take this PC disk, pop into that FDHD drive, and it mounts it right onto the desktop finder level, just like what you saw in the Dana file of the 5 1/4.
Okay, so if you've got the newer drive, you just need the software solution. You don't need the Dana file drive
That's
itself.
correct.
What's the price of both of the external unit as well as the software?
Okay, the software for the FDHD drive, which is DOS Mounter, retails for $89.95.
And how much if you need to buy the Dana file drive?
Dana
itself?
file, it ranges depending on configuration. Starts at $650 for a single 5 1/4. And for instance, this drive here, which is a dual drive with the high density, retails for about $1,005.
Okay, if I can ask Paul, you to take over. You've got a slightly different approach to solving
Right.
this problem, and tell us about it.
All right. The solution I have is called Soft PC. I'm going to eject her disk just because I'm going to use it in my demonstration.
Okay.
And what I've done is I've already installed Soft PC, which is a PC coprocessor board, if you will, but it's all software.
Large computer put in a room, and lots of people can use that particular machine. Peer-to-peer is where you have lots of different computers all over.
Start that up, and what you'll hear and see is an IBM PC compatible starting up.
Just to make us feel like we're in the DOS environment.
Right, and get a little
the
laugh
grinding
out
of
of it.
the
That's right.
drive.
The bump and grind of the original XT, we tape that.
All right,
I've
so
also thrown in a few extra utilities to change the color of.
All right, so it now looks like we're in a DOS machine.
Yes. So while I'm in this window is in effect the PC's monitor. And anything I want to do in here, I'll do with normal DOS commands.
Okay,
if I want a directory of what files I have on my drive that I started up from, drive C,
Sure looks like an IBM.
I use my normal DOS commands. And this PC that I've installed in my Mac with software has disk drives. It has a hard disk like a PC does, which actually uses the Mac hard disk, a file on the Mac hard disk. And I also have floppy disk drives. I can choose from almost any drive that the Mac can use, the FDH called Super Drive, which I currently have selected, or I could use any of these Dana file drives.
All right, now Paul, can you actually run this DOS software on the Mac using Soft PC?
That's what we're going to do next.
Paul, you do need to have either the FDHD or something like the Dana drive, is that right?
Or the Apple 5 1/4. We actually include a utility that would allow you to hook your Mac to a nearby PC and take over the A drive of that PC. But that's only practical for just bringing things over on a temporary basis.
All right, so I see you've called up WordPerfect.
This is WordPerfect 5.0, and it randomly says, oops, did I say that? I made a mistake.
That's right.
Let's try this again. WordPerfect randomly asks you if you're using it anywhere else.
Right. So again, you're not just calling up a WordPerfect file here. You're calling up the program, the DOS program, WordPerfect, which you'll be able to run, and there it is on your Macintosh.
Exactly. So whatever PC software I've used in the past on PCs, I can still use even though I've switched to a Mac.
And what does it cost to buy Soft PC?
$399.
Okay.
And so now I've put that disk in my disk drive that I've selected as my A. So I'll use the normal WordPerfect command to open a file. And it's asking me where I want it, so I'll tell it drive A. And it'll give me a list of files and subdirectories that are there.
And it's really there.
And this is sort of a DOS look at the same thing she showed us a second ago. So I'll tell it that I want to retrieve this file. And in a second, we'll see the file itself.
There it is.
And there it is. And we'll see the highlighting and those sort of things that WordPerfect for the PC does. I can
All right,
scroll
Paul,
through.
Pamela, we're out of time. Thank you very much. We've seen two examples now of how you can get your Macintosh to look like it's a PC. At PG&E in San Francisco, they have a system that lets you actually run your PC from a Macintosh. We have a report.
Pacific Gas and Electric is using the phone lines to connect many of its 17,000 micros throughout the western United States. One of its newest innovations is the ability to run some of the many PCs located across the room or across the state with Macintoshes. It's possible due to a program called PC MacTerm from Dynamic Microprocessor Associates.
Well, the trend in the industry as a whole is to try and get everything talking to everything else. And we're working towards that. We may end up with different operating systems that make that easier to do that type of thing. But right now, this particular product gets us to that point a lot sooner, in that we can indeed trade information between a Macintosh and a PC.
PC MacTerm allows Ernie to read his mail and launch some simple applications on his PC in Sacramento with a Macintosh in San Francisco. If there's a drawback, it's that the Mac can't run complicated programs on the remote PC yet, due to the limits of the PC at the other end. Nor can it read some formatted PC files. But what it can do, including print a file located on a PC 50 miles away, is enough for now. It may be several years before a Macintosh like this one can run all applications on a remote PC, including the memory-intensive ones. But this application shows that that day is near. In fact, just a couple of years ago, this would not have been possible. In San Francisco, for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
With us now in the studio is Maggie Colby. She's Senior Product Manager with Claris. And next to Maggie, Mark Epley, Chairman and CEO of Traveling Software. Jan?
Mark, we've just seen two approaches to getting Macs and PCs to communicate. And you've got a third approach. Tell us about it.
Well, it's our new version of Laplink Mac, Laplink Mac 3, and it's Mac to Mac and PC to Mac. And there's a simple cable connection and a modem connection. So there's two ways to connect a PC to a Mac. And what I'll do is I'll fire it up here. And it has a consistent interface on both sides, on the Macintosh and the PC.
Let's set up the scenario first, Mark. We have a PS2 and we have a Mac 2X over here.
Exactly.
And what we're going to try to do is what?
We're going to take a WordStar document on the PC, and we're going to transfer it over to the Macintosh.
Okay.
And let's say I had it on a laptop or whatever. And I've had some formatting commands, underline, boldface. I'm going to transfer it to the Macintosh, and it's going to automatically translate into Microsoft Word on the Macintosh.
Show us how you do it.
Okay. We've got, as you see here, you have an option for translators. And we go down here and select WordStar 4.
Okay.
And then on what we're going to transfer it to is the version of Microsoft Word on the Macintosh. Okay, we select that, and then we go and get the file. And the file is living in a subdirectory down here. Okay, and we take the file like that, and simply press copy with translate, and it goes over to the Macintosh. As you can see, you can control either keyboard. I could use the IBM keyboard with the mouse, or I can use the Macintosh keyboard with the mouse, whatever I'm most comfortable with. It's a consistent interface in the same product. So now I go over to the Macintosh here, and we go into Microsoft Word. We click right here, and we're into Microsoft Word. There's MacWrite. And then we'll open up a document. And the document that we just transferred over here is in this file folder. And there it is. And we click on that, and we open it up. And it's in Microsoft Word. And you have formatting like boldface, underline, and the like. And you can see that. Now, what it looked like in WordStar, we can go to that, okay, and I'll quickly fire up WordStar, and as you can see, here's the document side by side, the document in WordStar, which has the WordStar formatting commands, which is not WYSIWYG, which is what you see, what you get, which the Mac support, and so you have this transparent compatibility.
Mark, what are some of the issues and the problems involved in these kinds of transfers and translations?
Well, it's a complex issue because there's tabs, there's all the different commands for formatting, and also then there's a speed issue, and we support 115,000 baud transfer and translate in. That's about 1 megabyte a minute. So if you have large amount of data, like graphics images for PageMaker or the like, you just connect it with a cable and it blasts it through. Or if you're in your hotel room and you want to quickly get a document back to your Macintoshes, you can just call up and transfer it and automatically translate and send it through the phones into your Macintoshes in your office.
All right, and theoretically now, this Mac user in an office could be now working on this document inside Word, make some changes, and then later dump it back to somebody who's using a PC.
Yes,
you can see that again inside WordStar.
Exactly. It goes both directions. I could easily have a portable Mac in the hotel room and send it to my PCs back at the office.
All right, Maggie, you have yet another approach to solving this problem of getting PCs and Macs to work together. What is it?
Okay, what I'll be showing you is how with MacWrite 2, users who are working in groups and maybe using various different word processors can actually exchange files very seamlessly without the actual end user having to go through a lot of extra steps or worry about the communications link between the various platforms.
All right, show us what you mean.
Okay, what I have here is just a basic document in WordPerfect on the PC. And just scroll through it. I'll just come up here and make a quick change to it, and then we'll actually take this file and move it over to the Macintosh.
Okay, so you're a person working in an office on your PS2, working on a WordPerfect document. You've done something to it.
Made a change. Someone else may need to edit it. They may work on the Macintosh. So I'm just going to save this file to a floppy disk, and from here I will take it and put it on the Macintosh.
It's saving it now as a WordPerfect file.
Right, it's saving it as a WordPerfect PC file, and you can either save it on a floppy as we're doing here, or it could be saved on a file server if you're in a network environment.
But here we have no cables between these two machines. You just took the floppy and moved it from one guy's workstation to another.
Exactly.
You do need the FDHD,
and we have DOS Mounter installed within the system, which allows us to read that floppy disk.
So what's happening on the Mac now?
Okay, now from here I'm going to go right into MacWrite 2, and with the extend capability of MacWrite 2, you have the ability to read a wide variety of file formats, as you can see here. And since that was a WordPerfect document, what I'll do is just choose WordPerfect PC, switch to the drive, the PC drive, and then just double-click like I would any Macintosh file and open it up.
And it was a 5.0 file, huh?
Right.
Yeah. You asked for a 4.2 file. Pretty smart.
Yes, it will designate various versions, so it's very clear in exactly what format it's reading. Okay, from here, as you can see, we've got our exact document on the PC that we had on the PC. Here's the change. Okay, now if I want to make this third quarter for some reason, I can just go ahead, change that to the third quarter.
A little confusing with two keyboards here.
And once again, I can just save it out in any format. Now from here, if I wanted to save it as a Microsoft Word PC document instead of WordPerfect, I could do that. Since I'm working with one person in particular, I'll save it out as WordPerfect PC, save it, and it'll be saved back on my disk as a WordPerfect PC file.
All right, so you were able to take the same document, have two people working on it in two different platforms and two different programs.
And you can actually see here when I open up the disk, I have my WordPerfect PC file.
The main advantage of this over other systems is the fact that the user doesn't need to think about cabling and those issues.
Exactly. You don't need to think about cabling. You don't have to go through a separate conversion process before you even open up your application. You can work seamlessly within your application and get down to the writing of your document.
Maggie, briefly now, what are we talking about now? Is this MacWrite 2 that does this? Is it Extend, which is available in other programs?
MacWrite 2 is doing it in conjunction with Extend, which is an architecture that Claris has developed. And the first iteration of that architecture is seen in MacWrite 2. It's actually an architecture that is in addition to the MacWrite 2 application, and it allows for file translators to be read into MacWrite 2 and also for MacWrite 2 files to be read out as various translators. You'll see this architecture being used over time in other Claris applications, and other developers are creating file translators that can be directly read with the Extend architecture.
Maggie, Mark, thank you very much. We're out of time. That's our look at the Mac to PC connection. We'll be back with this week's computer news in just a moment. In the random access file this week, IBM has released a new 486 version of the Model 70 PS2. The company says the new 486 model is twice as fast as a 33 MHz 386 and 3 times faster than a 25 MHz model. IBM says the new PS2 Model 70 is using the corrected version of the i486 chip. The first batch of 486 chips from Intel had a bug in the floating point processor. Forbes magazine has named Apple Computer as the best positioned computer company for the 90s, calling it the best investment in the high-tech sector. Apple was among 10 companies picked by Forbes as industry leaders in the next decade. Apple last week decided to settle the lawsuit filed against it by QuickView Systems. QuickView had claimed that Apple's HyperCard violated patents it had received for its ZoomRacks software. The settlement involves a cash payment to QuickView plus a patent cross-licensing agreement. In this week's software review, Paul Schindler takes a look at a PC game called Vet.
You know, a lot of people call the Corvette America's favorite hot car. And for 36 years, it's been king of the road. Now it's ready to be king of the PC in an electronic game version called simply Vet. Alas, the instructions are muddy and there is no demo. It takes a while to get this program started, but it's worth it once you do. Note Tony Bennett on the right. We're looking at the EGA version, which is spectacularly better looking than CGA. If you haven't got EGA, get it. You can use a joystick, the keyboard, or a mouse to control Vet. You select a level of skill and get a license plate to match. Pick carefully. Beginners, for example, cannot crack up and don't get tickets. Then you select the car you will race against. The race takes place on the streets of San Francisco and passes many famous landmarks, just like Steve McQueen in Bullet. This is a big, complex game, and it can make use of as much hardware as you can throw at it. You're seeing it here on a 25 MHz 386. Vet is $50 from Spectrum Holobyte in Alameda, California. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Paul Schindler.
It looks like the U.S. Supreme Court will go ahead with plans to distribute high court decisions electronically. The court will make the decisions available online within minutes of their announcement to a number of legal information providers who will then presumably offer them to their clients through existing online services. The new Supreme Court opinion service is expected to start sometime this spring. What is apparently the first free public bulletin board in the Soviet Union has gone online in the city of Tallinn in Estonia. The sysops say the board is designed to spread information internally and from abroad. Many of the messages on the board are in English. For information on how to access the board, check the Online Today forum on CompuServe. Finally, a new report on online services says electronic consumer information services are still unprofitable and that a critical mass of users won't be reached for at least another 10 to 20 years. The report says that online consumer services will only turn the corner when there are enough users available to attract online advertisers. I can't wait. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next week.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte Magazine, and BIX, the Byte Information Exchange, and by Intel Corporation, Personal Computer Enhancement. Additional funding is provided by the Software Publishers Association, which reminds you that software is produced by people whose income is derived from legitimate software sales. Software piracy is a federal offense. When a few people steal software, everyone loses. For a transcript of this week's Computer Chronicles, send $4 to PTV Publications, Post Office Box 701, Kent, Ohio 44240. Please indicate program date.